Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Fueling Tomorrow. I'm your host, Erin Bailey, and today we are joined by a very special guest all the way from Washington, D.C. We have Congressman August Pfluger. And Congressman Pfluger, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to get to learn more about you and what you do as our congressman. And first, you've had a very impressive career as a fighter pilot for the U.S. Air Force, and now you've served in Congress since 2021. So, kind of talk to me what it was like serving as a fighter pilot, and then what inspired you to run for Congress?
Well, great question. As a kid, I wanted to fly. I had a grandfather, like many, um, that served in World War II. He was a pilot, and that was something that I thought, okay, this is something I could do. It took me on this huge adventure all over the world. Stationed in different places like Japan, flew in combat missions in the Middle East, and really just an incredible experience. I'll tell you the main thing that I've just kind of stepped away from the flying bit, but the main thing that I take away from it were the people, the incredible people that I served with that could have been doing a lot of different things,
Hmm.
but they had chosen to serve in this capacity, the professionalism, and it honestly reminds me of many of the people that I now get to represent because just hardworking, don't really want anything from anybody. They know that the responsibility is on them. And it was just like it was such an experience, such an experience. But that and I flew the F-22 and the F-15, and being able to do that with great men and women, and to have the opportunity to serve my country in a way that was at a time, with terrorism and different conflicts going on, was really important. Um, did not necessarily plan on running for Congress. This was something that kind of came up. And my predecessor decided to retire. He had been in there for 16 years, so 8 terms, and was doing a great job. But when that opportunity came up, through a lot of prayer, we decided that, okay, this is another chapter. It's different than flying combat missions
Yeah.
in the Middle East, but it's also, I think, at a time that was definitely an inflection point in our country. And I'm sure we'll get to the energy side of this. But made the decision to do it based on the opportunity. And it wasn't, I mean, I had an interest in this, but definitely not at the time. I mean, the timing was quite honestly not very good. And to jump into this with zero political experience, people ask me in DC all the time, so were you elected to state house or did you have political experience?
Went straight to it.
We went straight to it. Like,
What was that like for you, though?
oh, I had to learn so much.
Yeah.
Um,
Trial by fire?
it was, yeah, but I had to listen to people, and those that knew what was going on, and what to do. I mean, I literally had no choice but to listen, which I think was a really a good start because I listened to a lot of experts, and people who had been there and done that, and they said, here's the path, and these are the things that you should try to learn and focus on." And so here we are after almost 6 years of doing it.
Yeah. And how did those experiences shape how you serve the 11th District of Texas? And let's also touch on the area you serve because
Yeah.
20 counties is no small feat.
It's a huge area.
Yeah.
As you sit in Midland and you go to the eastern side of the district, it's 350 miles.
Hmm.
So it's a big area, but I love it. You've got so many different things that are going on: agriculture, military bases, obviously the heartbeat of American energy production right here in the Permian Basin. But all of those experiences, whether they were flying combat missions, stationed abroad, working with great people, I think shaped me into the type of leader that I wanted to be, and obviously still striving to do that. But somebody that is responsive, that pays attention to just doesn't matter how small the issue may seem, it's important to our office. And that I actually had a guy here in Midland when I was running, had not been elected yet, and he said, "I want you to write yourself a letter, and I want you to seal that letter up, and in it, tell yourself the kind of person you want to be, the kind of leader that you know, want to strive to be, so that you never lose focus of why you did this. Why did you decide to do this? And
Hmm.
and pour your heart out into this letter, and seal it up so that when you're done, that you can look back and be proud of the job you did."
Wow. Have you opened that back up?
No, no.
You're gonna wait till the
I'm gonna
end.
wait. I'm gonna wait till the end. But I remember all the reasons,
Mhm.
and a lot of it had to do with there are people who need representation, and when they call a congressman, that's probably like the last straw. I mean, and there's a lot of issues that we help on a daily basis, and then there's national security issues, of which energy is at the forefront of these. And I put those things into the letter, like this is what I want to be known for. Here are the things we need to achieve, and so we'll see. The grade has not been given yet, but I'm striving to make a good grade on that letter.
And what motivated you so early on in your congressional career to take such a stance in advocating for the oil and gas industry?
Well, if we rewind the clock to 2020, my primary was on March 3rd, 2020, and I was able to win the primary. We were very blessed to not have a runoff. There were 11 people, I think, if I remember correctly, in the race. And normally to get over 50%, you'd have to go to a runoff. We didn't. And then with the pandemic hitting this country,
Mhm.
um, the energy market and specifically oil prices plummeted. To in a lot of cases negative prices for a time there. So it was thrust upon us. I knew that it was important. I ran on it in the fall of 2019 and into the winter of 2020. I knew that energy production and what we did here was national security issue.
Mhm.
What we didn't know was that the world would change with the pandemic. And then when I got into office in 21, and President Biden took over, I was extremely worried about his stance on American energy and the assault that came. So it was a desire. I knew that it was important. I knew that it was the foundation of our economy and our security issues, but never could I have dreamed what actually would happen to it with prices, then with a full out government assault, really on my district. I mean, how can
Mhm.
you not take that personally? I did, and that led me to the point where I am today, which has been to try to stand up for this industry every single day.
And we've had the pleasure of hosting you and fellow members of Congress at facilities in the Permian Basin to really showcase our operations of what's taking place here. And when you bring those fellow members of Congress to the Permian, what do you hope that they learned from their time here, or what are the key messages you hope they take away from their visit?
Aaron, great question. I sat down with Travis Stice in the fall of 2019, and what a great leader, what a great man. His character and integrity are incredible. And he told me, he said, I want you to, he gave me a homework assignment. And I had to write him a paper of,
You're like,
what was important in the energy industry. And I did. And I went back and I wrote it and I handed it to him. And I think he was impressed that I even completed the assignment. I'm not sure how good it was, but
we'll give you an A
uh,
plus.
we'll, we'll claim it now. Um, but part of that discussion was you need to make sure that you bring colleagues out here so that they can see it. And that was I didn't take that as an optional type of assignment. That was something that when I was first sworn in January of 21, I said, I'm going to educate every one of myself and every one of my colleagues on what we do in the Permian Basin. We are over 40% of the country's crude oil production, and we obviously have something very special here, the largest secure supply of oil and gas in the world right here. And to date, I've brought almost 50 people out, and Diamondback has hosted most of those people
Yes.
from all over the country, New York to California, everywhere in between. It's been incredible. But to teach people like this is how we really do it, and this is how hard it is, but you make it look easy. And my colleagues have really benefited. Our country has benefited from that.
And when those tours finish and you guys are kind of wrapping things up and talking about it, do you think that their perspective changes a little bit when they get to see it in the field?
For sure. The current chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Brett Guthrie, was here, and he
Mhm.
he went on a Diamondback-led field trip, and he said, "Well, we need to go see a drilling site." I said, "Actually, yes, that would be great, but let's go see a completion. Let's see a frac job. Let's talk through that." And when he was able to feel the sand, and in his mind, hydraulic fracturing meant, something completely different what the crazy environmentalist will tell you is happening. And so he was actually able to see the little granules of fine sand that held the rock apart. And he goes, "You mean that?
Yeah.
That's what's holding the rock apart?" I said, "Yeah." And the engineers described it to him, and he tells that story every single time we have a hearing on energy. And he uses that. And he has educated hundreds of other people because of that. So, yeah, it's made a huge difference.
We love to hear that. And you touched on talking to Travis to educate yourself on the industry. Who are other people or things that you reach out to learn more about oil and gas?
Well, nobody's better at communicating the case. And he is able to do so in a way that dumbs it down for those of us who need that and is able to explain it
Mhm.
in a very real way that um, ties in the economy and the engineering and the geopolitical view, because our energy production is not just important here for inflation and prices and things that we're doing here, but it's also important for our allies. So Case has been instrumental, but there's so many leaders here in Midland that have years and decades of experience. I think of Mr. Jim Henry, somebody who was a pioneer in this industry that I got a chance to know and hear his views on kind of the cyclical nature. And obviously, Secretary Don Evans is a huge voice and has been a mentor to me. But one thing that they have in common, and there's dozens more that fit into that category that I'm sorry I'm not listing, but one thing that everybody has in common with what they tell me is we need the government to not set the market, to not, intervene, but to give us a predictable future to build
Mhm.
on, to invest in, so that we can get out of the big cycles, the big swings, and that, we have something that is easy to invest in. And I'm proud to say that a lot of the legislation that I've led on is a result of those discussions and hearing the lessons from these pioneers that try to get us into a place where the government is out enough, but also is doing something that makes it more predictable and transparent.
And in a relatively short amount of time, you've risen to chair both the House Energy Action Team and the Republican Study Committee. Can you touch on what both of those roles entails, but also how you use that to push pro-domestic oil and gas policies?
Thank you. I love this topic. And um, Travis and Diamondback were phenomenal guests at the House Energy Action Team, the HEAT team, as we call it. It's got a good name. Steve Scalise started this team. It's all about domestic production of energy. It's how we compete, how we achieve energy dominance. Remember that prior to 2015, we couldn't export crude oil. So that was a result of Steve and his efforts. And then he came to me, he said, I want you to chair this. And for 2 years, I chaired the team. We had 17 different meetings, um, all sorts of great guests like Travis and the Diamondback team, like Ray Perryman, world-renowned economists, and others who were able to put in perspective during Biden's last 2 years of the type of legislation we needed. And then that led to running for the Republican Study Committee, which we have 189 members.
Wow.
It's a huge group. It's the biggest committee in Congress. We meet every week. And my guests are people like the Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, like the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum. And Lee Zeldin. Those are the types of people we bring to have the discussion. You know, I'll say probably the one of the most important things we've done in the Republican Study Committee, which is a conservative group, but there was a message early on in this administration that let's get to $40 oil. And I said, hold on, let me explain why that's not a good idea. Many conversations with Chris Wright, asking him to make sure that their heart's in the right place. They want low prices for the country on
Mhm.
gas and groceries and everything else. But $40 oil is not it's not a thing. It's you're literally going to send it to past $100. We should advocate for a reasonable, stable price band.
And do you think without your trips and your relationships with people in the Permian that you would be able to advocate in that way?
Oh, there's no way. No, I mean, because now you go to people like Rick Allen from Georgia, and he said, I remember that trip when I
Mhm.
came out to Midland and you showed us this. And so it's not just me as a voice. Um, Many Midlanders, when I was running, said, we don't need one vote. We need you to have multiple votes. And I said, what do you mean? Well, we need you to be able to influence people and have other people advocate for these positions. And that's what we did by doing that. And it's not just Republicans. by the way. Every piece of legislation I've passed this year has been bipartisan with multiple Democrats voting for it. So that that's not me. That is them coming out here. Those are the experts and the like Diamondback hosting these individuals from different parts of the world that they know they like energy, but they don't know the ins and outs of it.
It's a lot to learn.
It's a ton to learn. Yeah, I still have a lot to learn. But bringing those people out has been a big benefit to learning it.
And now I kind of want you to look at your career as a whole so far. Can you share a defining moment from your career, whether it be military, national security, or your time in Congress, that's kind of influenced the areas that you're passionate about?
You're asking hard questions. It's a great one. I think I'll go back to my military career. When ISIS was devastating Iraq and Syria, a horrible group. I mean, they were burning villages. You think of Iraq and Syria, and most people don't know a lot about what goes on in kind of the rural areas. But these are families who've been ravaged by war for a long time, and so they're trying to just make their way. ISIS comes in and is devastating the whole country, and they're about to take over the whole of the Iraqi government, and really we're threatening Baghdad. So we're flying these combat missions, and we're supporting a huge coalition and alliance against ISIS. What ISIS did was burning everything to the ground, including oil production. And for about a month north of Baghdad, I would see these wells burning, and you could use your night vision goggles when we were flying at night, and you could see the burned material, the burned oil that was still hot on the ground a month after the wells were extinguished. It was crazy. And I thought to myself, what kind of place would take the resource that is allowing their economy to exist and burn it? And whoever's doing this, first off, we need to make sure that they never have a chance to ever do this again. But that has shaped me in the perspective that I have here. And I'm not sure it's so different on, we should be able to talk between the political ideologies and have a conversation. If the left believes in the environment and they say these things are important, well, why don't we talk from my side of the aisle, which we have attempted to do a lot, about how we can achieve those objectives and also use the resources in a good way,
Mhm.
which I think we do have those solutions. So what I saw in the first 4 years under the Biden administration was not so different than attempting to burn resources and not use them responsibly, and the population suffer as a result of it. So that shaped me in a big way. I said, I'm going to stand up for this industry because it literally it could be a life or death situation for our country at some point. I know it's a national security issue, so that's deep. I got real deep there, but it shaped me in a way that I will never forget what I saw there.
And you've been standing up for our industry. And as you look over the next few years, what are some long term goals you have for the 11th District of Texas?
Well, the district is going to change a little bit. It has changed. So that 350 miles is going to go to 375 miles.
Just taking on a little
We're
bit
gonna,
more.
yeah, and we're going to go into North Austin. So I'm going to have to learn, new constituents and some who may not agree with some of the positions, and that's okay. But I'm up for the challenge of educating them on
Mhm.
why this is important and tying together some things that maybe they hadn't thought about. Um, I will continue to stand up for what we do in this district and for the energy industry. What I'd like to see in the energy industry specifically is permitting reform. To be able to build pipelines, interstate pipelines, and not just pipelines, but also roads and bridges and highways and transmission lines and all these things. And this is a bipartisan effort. And I think that I'm well suited to lead an effort like this, knowing that there are differences between the parties. And obviously, it's a really tough time politically, and it's very divisive. But this is something that I think can bring our country back together to say, okay, we understand that those of us on the right have priorities, those on the left have other priorities, and if we come together, it has to be bipartisan. That we can negotiate in a way that is beneficial. So that probably is if not the most important thing, one of the most important things that we will work on in the next this year, and then hopefully in the next couple of years we'll actually get this done.
And you mentioned your area is growing a little bit. With the area you serve, you get to see a lot of Texas. What's your favorite thing about West Texas?
Oh my goodness, that's a hard one to answer.
You can give a few.
Okay, when you drive on 158 um, near Garden City, there is a field that right now in the fall, and because we've gotten some good rainfall this year, has it's a beautiful cotton field. And in the middle of that cotton field, there are a couple of pump jacks. And then you have hills behind it, and there's livestock that's on those hills, and there's even some windmills that are out there. And I love that field so much so that I've taken multiple pictures of it and given it to an artist, and they painted.
Wow, I was gonna say it sounds
It's
picturesque.
it's amazing. So when you come to my office
Okay.
in DC, you will see this now painting of this area, and I think about that. It's very symbolic of our of West Texas.
Mhm.
There's so much going on. At first glance, you may not take it all in, and but then at second glance, you realize that the way agriculture has always been a part of this area, and then the engineering that has gotten us to oil and gas and new forms of energy, but then just the beauty of this of this landscape. I love it. I absolutely love it. And talking to colleagues as I drive, where are you? I'm in West Texas, and they're like, "Man, there's just something beautiful about it." I know. That's why
Yeah.
I love this area.
Do you have sunsets or sunrises in DC like you do here?
Oh, never. No, you have to come home to get those. Every once in a while, you can see a pretty sunset back behind the Washington Monument. That's really pretty,
Oh, that's probably nice.
but never like
Yeah.
West
Not
Texas.
the wide open spaces.
No.
From your time in Congress, do you have a favorite story or memory so far that you wanna share with us?
Mhm. Well, anytime, and I would invite you and the Diamondback team to come to our baseball game, because anytime we
Oh,
beat
yeah.
Democrats on the congressional baseball team, that's a great day. So there's been some really good memories
Do
there.
you practice for that, or do
Oh,
you guys
do
just
we
go out there?
practice?
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, we we probably have 25 practices
Really?
leading up to our one game season.
Do you have cuts? Does everyone make the team?
Well, you can come out for the game, but not
Yeah.
everybody plays.
Yeah.
And we have,
You're going
a
to
good
win.
text. Yes, we are going to win. We're playing to win. I play third base and pitch. Those have been great. And actually, the Democrats were winning before I got to Congress. It was 9 out of 10 years. And then we had this group of, I'm younger compared to most congressmen, um, of younger congressmen come in that had some athletic
You're like,
experience.
"It's game time."
Yes, it's game time, and so now we're on a good 5-game winning streak, and we're looking to extend that. So those are great. Um, this year was able to pass the very first piece of legislation that was signed into law, which was related to the oil and gas industry, and it repealed a Biden era rule that was not thoughtful about the industry and not didn't take into account all the facts. And so, we're in the Oval Office, and President Trump says, "Well, now what are we signing here?" And I said, "Mr. President, this is the most
Yeah.
important thing that will get signed into law this month because it repeals a natural gas tax that was unfair to our producers." And when you come out and you see the work that our industry is doing to make sure that we don't have methane leaks and that we actually are taking care of the environment, you'll know why this was really important. So
Mhm.
that was the first piece of legislation he signed into law when he was president, that was a proud moment.
When you think back of when you started Congress and getting to a point like that, how do you sit and reflect on how proud that moment is?
I, I don't know that I've taken the time to really do that. Because we're not I haven't been and my office hasn't been in the business of, touting too many of the wins. We just work hard,
Mhm.
but I mean, when you think about being in the Oval Office and getting something signed into law that changes the trajectory of an industry and of our country, it's pretty neat. I mean, but I'm not doing this alone. I mean, this is a team effort that those who have been invested in my future to lead, who have taught me and educated me and allowed me to bring 50 people, 50 different
Yeah.
members out here, um, that's their win as well.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I the yeah, I think it's kinda related to that, and I do reflect on this a lot, that this is a special place, that there's nowhere else in the world, and I've lived on 3 different continents in lots of different places in the United States. There's nowhere else in the world that has the size of towns like Odessa and Midland and San Angelo, where they're small, 100,000, people towns, so they're big enough, but they still have a hometown family community
Mhm.
feel. And it's that feel with the community that is so generous to help, it doesn't matter what the issue is. If somebody needs something, um, this community is gonna help, and they're the first people to stand up and say, "What do you need?" And it's that type of, lesson that I learn every single day that I'm driving through the district, that I'm visiting with people, that helps me in DC because not every community is like that. And so it's really neat. And I'm just really thankful to have been raised here, but also now to have the chance to represent what I consider and what most people will acknowledge. Some of my colleagues don't, but this is the best place in our country. And it's the people that I get to represent and work with. So that I think that's what I'd like to end with.
Well, we love that. And thank you so much for coming to chat with us today.
Thank you, Aaron.
Everyone, on behalf of August and myself, that does it for this episode of Fueling Tomorrow. We'll chat with you next time.